You were marked before you were noticed. Before the world had a name for you, heaven had a purpose for you. Long before anyone saw your potential, God planted it deep within you. This is why you've always felt slightly out of place, even in familiar spaces. It's why you never fully blended in, no matter how hard you tried. There's a quiet knowing in your spirit, a whisper that tells you, you're not like the rest. And you're not supposed to be. You weren't made to fit in. You were created to stand out, not in arrogance, but in assignment. There's something different about you, and while you may not always be able to explain it, others can feel it. People sense it before you even speak. It's in the way you carry yourself, in the depth behind your eyes, in the strength of your silence. There's an invisible weight you carry, one that cannot be taught or copied. It was given to you, marked upon your soul by the one who created you with purpose. This mark is not visible to the eye, but it is deeply spiritual. It calls you higher, even when no one else sees your climb. It calls you deeper, even when surface-level living would be easier. It pulls you away from what's popular, from what's common, and sometimes even from what's comfortable. And that pulling, that stretching is not punishment. It's preparation. When God marks someone, He doesn't ask for public opinion. He doesn't wait for human approval. He sets them apart for something greater. And while others may chase attention, the marked are drawn to alignment. While others seek applause, the marked crave purpose. You were never meant to be part of the crowd. That ache inside you, that quiet restlessness you've carried for years, it wasn't confusion, it was calling. The uneasiness was not weakness, it was awakening. You've been chosen for something others may never understand, and that's exactly why they feel uneasy around you. There's a spiritual tension that happens when someone marked by God enters the room. It's not about how loud you are or how much you try to stand out. It's what you carry that sets the atmosphere. You don't have to announce who you are. Your spirit already did. The presence of someone who walks with divine favor unsettles those who haven't yet answered their own calling. You become a mirror without trying. And what people see in that mirror either inspires them or threatens them. That's not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for how others respond to your light. You are only responsible for not dimming it. The moment you start shrinking yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown, you dishonor the mark that was placed on you. This is not pride, it's stewardship. Stewardship of the gifts you've been given, the wisdom you've been shown, and the path that only you are called to walk. Being marked means being misunderstood. It means some will question your motives, not knowing the weight of your mission. Some will distance themselves, not realizing they're retreating from their own growth. But you must stay the course. Keep walking with clarity, even when others are confused. Keep holding your peace, even when chaos surrounds you. You weren't chosen to please people. You were chosen to obey God. And when He marks you, He also matures you. He doesn't give you all the answers at once, but He gives you the strength to keep moving forward. And that strength, that unshakable faith, what sets you apart. Not perfection, not popularity, but the ability to keep believing even in silence, to keep showing up even when unseen, to keep trusting even when the road feels lonely. You are not here by accident. That restlessness you've been feeling is divine confirmation. The reason you feel different, the reason you've been misunderstood, the reason you've been isolated, it's all pointing to one truth. You've been marked by God, and no amount of rejection, no wave of doubt, no weapon formed against you can remove what heaven has declared over your life. The seal on your soul is not up for debate. It's divine. It's eternal. And it's yours. Being marked by God doesn't always feel like a gift at first. In fact, it often feels like loss. It feels like being left out, like being overlooked, like carrying something too heavy for others to understand. When you've been chosen, there's a weight that comes with it, and not everyone can see what you're carrying. That's why it's easy for others to misjudge your silence, to misread your intentions, to misunderstand your path. Favor isn't always celebrated. Sometimes it's attacked. Sometimes it makes people uncomfortable. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your life is a reminder of what they've neglected in themselves. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Your obedience challenges their complacency. When you walk in purpose, it confronts people who have chosen to settle. And rather than honor that, some will withdraw. Some will criticize. Some will even resent you, all while never truly knowing your heart. This is why you must learn not to take their discomfort personally. It's not really about you. It's about what's working through you. When God marks a person, the favor on their life becomes a spiritual presence. You walk with something that cannot be explained in human terms. You have clarity others don't. You have peace in the middle of storms that should have broken you. You see things that others overlook, and you hear whispers that others ignore. That kind of insight, that kind of grace can make others feel exposed, even if you never speak a word. That's why some will avoid you. That's why others will misinterpret you. And that's why you need to stay grounded. Stay rooted in the truth that you weren't marked for popularity, you were marked for purpose. The discomfort you feel from others isn't a rejection. It's a sign that your calling is real. Because if you were just like everyone else, they'd feel no need to question you. But you're not. You were set apart. And when you're set apart, don't expect to be fully understood. Expect resistance. Expect tension. But don't let that shake your identity. You are favored, even when it doesn't feel like it. You don't have to say a word. Your presence already speaks volumes. There's something about you that shifts the atmosphere, not because you try to be impressive, but because what you carry is spiritual, not superficial. People can feel the difference, even if they can't explain it. Your peace unsettles those who are battling inner chaos. Your focus feels intimidating to those who are distracted. Your very existence becomes a reminder of discipline, purpose, and alignment. And that confrontation is internal. People might not know why they feel uneasy around you, but their spirit recognizes something divine that their mind cannot process. This is why you often feel tension with people who haven't done anything to you, and why you receive distance from those you've only shown kindness to. What's happening isn't personal in the earthly sense, it's spiritual on a higher level. You carry a presence that stirs the unseen. You may not have chosen to be a mirror, but that's what you've become. You reflect what others have buried. Your boldness reflects their fear. Your resilience reflects their avoidance. Your clarity reflects their confusion. And without saying a word, your life challenges them. For some, that challenge is inspiring. They'll want to grow. But for others, that challenge feels like a threat, and they'll retreat. Not because you've judged them, but because your light brings awareness to their shadows. It's not that you're too much. It's that what you carry reveals too much. And when you understand this, you stop shrinking to make others feel safe. You stop lowering your frequency to match the noise. You realize that this discomfort is actually confirmation, proof that you're operating in a realm not everyone has accessed yet. So let them be uncomfortable. You were not created to soothe their insecurities. You were created to awaken their potential. And if your presence alone begins that process, even if it causes temporary discomfort, then you are walking in divine purpose. You weren't meant to be invisible. You were meant to carry a presence that speaks even when you're silent. Many expect that being chosen by God will lead to admiration, applause, or validation. But the reality is often the opposite. Those who are truly marked aren't always celebrated. They are often questioned, doubted, or dismissed. There's a loneliness that follows those who are set apart. Because when God places His hand on your life, He also places you in situations where others won't understand what He's doing in you. And because they don't understand, they often resist it. They may downplay your efforts, minimize your gifts, or overlook your value, not out of truth, but out of discomfort. Their reaction to your calling has nothing to do with your worth. It has everything to do with their inability to comprehend the weight you carry. But rejection is not always a loss. Sometimes it is divine protection. When people pull away, it's not always abandonment. It's sometimes alignment. It's heaven closing the wrong doors so you don't walk through them. There will be seasons when you wonder why they stopped calling, why the invitations disappeared. or why the people you once loved no longer feel connected to you. It hurts at first, but if you're listening closely, you'll realize it's God saying, I'm shifting your circle for where I'm taking you. Some of the people you're trying to keep were never meant to be part of your next chapter, not because they're bad, but because their presence would limit your elevation. When God marks you, He doesn't just give you favor. He gives you separation. It's a pruning process, a painful one, but necessary. If you keep trying to stay where you no longer belong, you'll delay what's already been prepared for you. So let them go. Let the distance form. Don't chase what's falling away. If the relationship couldn't survive your growth, it wasn't rooted in God. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. And when you're positioned by heaven, you must stop begging for validation from people who were never called to witness your anointing. They don't see you because they're not meant to. But God sees everything. And that is more than enough. There's a depth inside you that many cannot comprehend. And that depth makes shallow people uncomfortable. You carry a weight, not just from your past, but from your purpose. It's a spiritual responsibility that cannot be explained, only lived. People see your strength, but not the battles you've had to survive to build it. They admire your calm, but they don't know the storms you've had to walk through silently. And because they can't see the full story, they misread your resilience as pride or detachment. But they don't understand what it means to carry vision, to carry pain without bitterness, to carry power with humility. You've been assigned a life that requires more from you, and not everyone can relate to that demand. So when they pull away, when they label you as different, distant, or hard to read, it's because your depth demands something they've never had to explore within themselves. It's easier for others to keep things surface level, to live in the safe zone where vulnerability and truth are avoided. But you can't live there. You were never meant to. There's something in your spirit that refuses to settle for empty conversations, meaningless connections, or shallow living. You crave truth, purpose, and alignment. That craving will always make you stand out. Not everyone is built for that. Not everyone is willing to dig that deep or live that honestly. And so instead of leaning in, they walk away. Instead of asking questions, they make assumptions. Instead of drawing closer, they keep their distance. But again, this isn't your burden to fix. You are not called to lower your depth to make others feel less exposed. You are called to remain true to what God is cultivating in you. If they feel discomfort around you, that is something for them to wrestle with, not something for you to apologize for. Keep carrying your weight with grace. Keep walking with quiet strength, because the ones who are meant to walk with you won't be threatened by your depth. They'll be drawn to it. And until then, let the distance do its work. Their discomfort isn't truly about you. It's about what you reflect back to them. You are a mirror, not a threat. You reflect truth they've tried to bury. You reflect strength they've been too afraid to develop. You reflect discipline that highlights their distractions, and vision that challenges their excuses. And because they're not ready to face those parts of themselves, they project discomfort onto you. They say you've changed, when really you've evolved. They say you're distant, when really you've grown selective. They call it pride, but it's discernment. You've simply stopped trying to belong in spaces that shrink your identity. And for many, that choice alone is unsettling. People want you to remain familiar, predictable, and safe. Because when you rise, they're forced to reckon with their own refusal to move. Your growth is a mirror. And not everyone wants to see themselves clearly. The truth is, you no longer fit into what you've outgrown. And when that happens, your very presence becomes a form of quiet disruption. You don't need to criticize anyone for where they are. Your alignment does that by default. You don't need to boast or prove anything. Your peace is evidence enough. But understand this, when you start walking in purpose, it magnifies the areas where others are avoiding theirs. That's why the air shifts when you speak. That's why people squirm when you hold your boundaries. It's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because your alignment is pulling them toward a place they're not yet ready to go. And so, they retreat. They avoid. They mislabel, but none of it changes who you are. Don't let their reaction make you question your identity. You are not too much. You are not too serious. You are not too focused. You are simply walking in the fullness of what God placed in you, and that will always make those playing small feel exposed. Let the mirror reflect what it must. Let it inspire those ready to grow. For the rest, let them be. You weren't created to be acceptable to everyone. You were created to be authentic before God. Keep reflecting. Keep rising. Even if they can't handle the image. You were never meant to walk a common path. That unsettling feeling you've carried for years, that sense that you're different, that you don't quite fit, is not an illusion. It's confirmation. You weren't made for average. You weren't built for convenience or applause. You were shaped for purpose, for influence, for spiritual weight. And when you walk in that calling, it naturally isolates you. Not because you've chosen pride, but because you've chosen obedience. The more you align with who God called you to be, the more you realize how few are willing to walk that road with you. Most people prefer the comfort of the crowd, the safety of blending in. For those marked by God, blending is impossible. You stand out even when you try to hide. Your silence speaks. Your presence shifts things. And the truth is, the path of the chosen is often paved with solitude. There will be moments when you feel forgotten, hidden, even invisible. But those seasons are sacred. They are not signs of failure. They are seasons of refining. God hides those He is preparing. He protects what is valuable. And while others are chasing stages and attention, you are being strengthened in secret. That hidden season isn't punishment, it's development. While others seek exposure, you're being established. While others fight for status, you're learning how to carry weight without crumbling. And when the time comes for your purpose to fully unfold, you'll realize that what felt like isolation was actually insulation. You were being preserved. You were being equipped. So when they walk away, when they avoid you, when you feel the sting of silence, don't question your worth. Don't beg to be understood. You are not overlooked. You are being protected by design. The ones marked by God are not made in public. They are forged in private, through pain, through pruning, through seasons where only God sees the effort. That's why your foundation is unshakable. Because it wasn't built on applause, it was built in the wilderness. And anyone who's ever been marked knows that the wilderness isn't empty. It's holy. It's where real strength is born. And that strength is what makes people uncomfortable, not because of what you say, but because of who you've become. When God marks you, He also matures you. And that maturity doesn't come through comfort. It comes through pressure. It comes through spiritual weight that forces you to outgrow old patterns, small thinking, and shallow connections. You're no longer satisfied with what used to entertain you. The conversations that once felt fulfilling now feel empty. The people you once aligned with now seem distant. Not because you're better than them, but because your spirit is elevated. God is stretching your capacity. He's expanding your vision. And with that expansion comes a natural separation. What once felt like friendship now feels like resistance. What once felt like loyalty now feels like limitation. And it's hard because your heart still loves people who no longer recognize the version of you that God is forming. But maturity teaches you to let go without resentment, to release what's no longer aligned without bitterness, to walk forward with grace even if you walk alone. You begin to realize that peace is more valuable than popularity. That alignment is more important than approval. And that spiritual clarity will cost you some relationships, but it will protect your destiny. You don't explain your growth anymore. You live it. You don't argue with people who don't see the vision. You build it anyway. Because maturity teaches you that silence is often louder than explanation. The more you evolve, the less you need to be understood by everyone. You become okay with being misunderstood, even avoided. Not because you're cold, but because you're called. And that calling requires emotional discipline. You can't afford to carry offense. You can't afford to chase closure. You can't afford to water down your purpose for the sake of familiarity. This kind of maturity causes people to distance themselves, not because you've changed in the wrong way, but because you've grown in the right direction. They don't know how to handle the version of you that's no longer available for confusion. The version of you that walks with clarity, sets boundaries, and chooses peace over chaos. And that version, that's the one God has been waiting to reveal all along. Let it rise even if others fall away. There comes a point when you stop needing validation from those who were never equipped to recognize your value. Not everyone can see what God placed inside you. Not everyone is meant to. And if you spend your life trying to convince the blind to see your vision, you'll exhaust your energy and delay your destiny. Some people will never acknowledge your growth because doing so would force them to confront their own stagnation. They'd rather believe you changed in a negative way than accept that you've simply outgrown what no longer serves your purpose. And that's why they act distant. That's why they become uncomfortable. Not because you're arrogant, but because your progress reminds them of the progress they haven't made. You're walking into rooms they didn't think you belonged in. You're carrying a peace they don't understand, and it unsettles them, not because you've done anything wrong, but because their spirit feels exposed in your presence. You'll notice it in subtle ways. Invitations stop. Conversations grow short. Energy shifts when you walk in. It's not your imagination. It's spiritual. The higher you rise, the more you reveal what others have been hiding. And while it may feel like rejection, it's actually redirection. God is removing voices that can't go with you into the next level. He's silencing distractions disguised as friendships. Because where He's taking you requires discernment, clarity, and strength. You can't afford to be surrounded by people who resent your obedience or compete with your calling. So don't mourn what walked away. Don't chase what disconnected. Trust that God sees what you don't. Trust that those who are meant to walk with you will do so in peace, not in silent comparison. You're not hard to love. You're just not easy to fool. You see beyond the surface. You feel energy others try to mask. That's the cost of being marked. And while it may isolate you at times, it also protects you. Because favor attracts a lot, but God only allows what aligns with your calling to stay. Let that be enough. One of the greatest signs that you've been marked by God is when your peace becomes disruptive. Not loud, not aggressive, just quietly unshakable. You walk into rooms and you don't need to say much because what surrounds you speaks louder than words. It's the peace that confuses people. The calm in your eyes, the steadiness in your steps, the stillness in your spirit. That kind of peace makes noise in a chaotic world. And when people haven't found that peace within themselves, yours becomes a mirror and a confrontation. They don't understand how you can remain composed under pressure. They don't understand how you choose forgiveness instead of revenge, purpose instead of pettiness, faith instead of fear. And because they can't comprehend it, they either lean in to learn or back away to escape. Don't mistake their distance as dislike. It's often awe they can't admit. You weren't given that peace to blend in. You were given it to be an anchor. In a world full of noise, distraction, and emotional instability, you've been assigned the role of spiritual stillness. It's not that you don't feel deeply. It's that you've learned how to stay rooted in truth regardless of what storms come your way. And that level of self-control, that inner calm, is spiritual maturity in motion. It's not that life hasn't hit you hard. It has. But you've chosen to remain planted. You've chosen to trust in what can't be seen. And because of that, your peace has become power. But not everyone knows what to do with that power. Some will respect it. Others will resist it. Some will draw near to learn. Others will retreat, not because you failed to connect, but because your presence reveals their chaos. And that's not your burden to carry. You weren't meant to apologize for the peace God gave you. You were meant to carry it, protect it, and walk in it unapologetically. Let them be uncomfortable. If your peace disturbs their chaos, maybe it's the very invitation they need to begin their own healing. You just keep standing firm. That's what you were built for. Sometimes the discomfort others feel around you isn't rooted in jealousy. It's rooted in conviction. You don't have to preach to expose what's missing in someone's life. You don't need a platform to influence people. Simply by living in alignment, walking in purpose, and refusing to compromise your values, you become a standard. And standards always confront people. They shine a light on areas that have been neglected. You didn't ask to be that light, but when God marks you, you become it anyway. Not for your ego, but for His glory. You carry a quiet authority. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that shifts the atmosphere without saying a word. People feel it. Some are drawn to it. Others are unsettled by it. But all are affected by it. That's what happens when you walk in truth. You don't have to fight for recognition. Truth does the talking. You're not intimidating because of your voice. You're intimidating because of your presence. Because your presence isn't empty. It's filled with discipline, wisdom, and divine fire. That's why your silence speaks so loudly. That's why your calm feels like thunder to those living in noise. It's not your personality that unsettles them. It's your power. And not power you created, but power that was placed in you. A divine assignment that continues to unfold as you remain faithful. The more you honor what's in you, the less you tolerate what drains you. And that shift is noticeable. Your absence begins to say what your words no longer need to. You don't chase people anymore. You don't explain your standards anymore. You don't entertain confusion anymore. And that kind of clarity will always create distance with those who thrive in chaos. Let it. Let the clarity refine your circle. Let your presence do the filtering. You weren't created to be tolerated. You were created to be transformational. And transformation isn't always comfortable. So don't be surprised when your presence triggers growth in some and resistance in others. It's not about who likes you. It's about who is ready. Keep walking in truth and let the rest unfold as it should. You were never meant to be easily understood. What's on your life is too uncommon, too deeply rooted in purpose, to be explained in casual language. And that's okay. You weren't created to be explained. You were created to be experienced. There's a reason your presence shifts rooms. There's a reason people pause when you speak, even if they don't agree with you. There's a reason hearts either open up or close off in your company. It's not because you're trying to be anything other than who you are. It's because who you are carries weight, not worldly weight, not titles, popularity, or fame, but spiritual weight, eternal value. You walk with something that doesn't come from degrees or achievements. It comes from being in the presence of God, from wrestling with Him in the dark, from surrendering your will over and over until it finally broke into obedience. That kind of weight is not common. It cannot be copied, and it cannot be ignored. This is why you feel misunderstood at times. This is why people create stories about you without ever knowing your heart. Because light always exposes, and your light has been growing brighter. It reveals things, even without trying. But that is part of your calling, to carry what others run from, to stand firm when others bend, to live holy in a culture that glorifies compromise. And yes, it's heavy. Yes, it's lonely sometimes, but it is worth it. Because what's in you will outlast trends, opinions, and seasons. What's in you is eternal. And while people may be uncomfortable around you now, there will come a time when they'll remember your name. Not because you were loud, but because you were real. Because you were steady. Because when everything else around them was shaking, your spirit remained anchored. So walk on. Not with arrogance, but with assurance, not seeking to be liked, but committed to being faithful. The world may not recognize what you carry, but heaven does. You've been marked, not for their comfort, but for His glory. And for that, you never have to apologize.